Hello, Morgan Adams supporters. This is Kurt reporting from Albuquerque, New Mexico. If you don't know what this car is, then my friend Alberto will now introduce you to this wonderful machine.
Sure. My name is Alberto Gutierrez, and I'm a proud owner of this 1954 Arnolt-Bristol. It's a very interesting car. I restored it. It has no resemblance to what it looked like when I took on the project. Maybe if I had it to do over, I'm not sure I would do it again, but I am very happy with the outcome. Let me tell you a little bit about the car. This is a car that was conceived by a guy who became known as Wacky Arnold. His name was Stanley Arnold. He was an MG dealer in Chicago before the war, and after World War II he went to England and he saw some Bristol cars that he liked the chassis and the engines, but he wasn't real keen on the bodies. So given the fact that England was in a situation where they really needed any kind of foreign exchange they could after the war, Bristol agreed to sell Wacky Arnold a 200 of these rolling chassis that were basically like Bristol 404 chassis. And what Wacky did is said, let's take those chassis to Italy and have Bertone do a body for them. And so this is the outcome. This is the body that Bertone designed. I think Wacky and Bertone worked on it on a napkin, and then they designed this car. And the car was intended, Wacky's idea was in the 50s, that this would be like a gentleman's race car. You could drive it to work during the week, and then you could race it on the weekend.
Wow.
Has got a good history. Not this particular car, but this car did win Sebring in 1954 and 55. 130 of them that were built. Actually 142, 12 burned up in a fire. And so there's about 130 of them, and maybe about 85 of them that remain. Now, let me show you a few things about the car before we look inside. You can see it's very basic. It has a nice, this is a deluxe model dash, even though it was the basic model car, and they did a lot of this kind of stuff. And in the deluxe dash, they had this grouping of instruments. So you see, basically, you know, your oil temperature, oil pressure, and amp. Here's the oil pressure, here's the oil temperature, and the water temperature, the tach, and the speedometer. And that's basically it. This car has an overdrive, Laycock overdrive. That's what this is here. And you can see it's pretty basic otherwise.
So this car would be considered an English car, an Italian car, or an American car?
Well, it's like, I think it's like a hybrid, you know, because it is a British chassis and engine, an Italian body, and then they ship them back to Wausau, Indiana, and put these interiors in. This is the Bristol engine. It's a 2-liter pushrod that was the standard engine that was in the Bristol 404, same engine that's here. You can see this has been fully restored. Some unusual things about this car that I want to point out that are kind of interesting, and not the least of which is this. This thing here is called an Enots one-shot oiler, and what this is a reservoir. It's actually, I think, empty right now, and what it was intended to do is to allow you on the fly while you're racing the car. You'll see down here that there's a pedal up here to the left of the clutch, up in here, it says E-Knots, and when you would push that pedal right in there,
Yep.
what would happen is it has a like a master cylinder under this, and all of these brass lines that you see going down here from that master cylinder go to every lubrication point on the chassis. So when you would push that thing, you just push oil right through all of those lubrications. That sounds like a great idea, and it probably was kind of nice to have that, but when you're driving it, you don't really want to do that too much or do it in your garage, because then you get a pool of oil at every suspension point.
Right.
You know? So it is kind of a messy thing. But this line that you see, the very crisp edge on the fender, it falls all the way through the door and carries on back here. But there's a place where it goes completely flat on the door here, about this 9-inch spot. But when you stand back, your eye kind of fills it in. So it just, that line just continues all the way around the car.
Let me ask you one more question. Why did you buy this car? What is intriguing about this vehicle for you?
Well, I always loved the design. I mean, to me, it was a really unique body, and it was a very great story. You know, I like the whole history. The interesting thing about this car, too, I found it in Sweden.
Oh.
This car was exported to Sweden in the early 80s, and I tracked down the history of it. I've got photographs. It was raced in California in the 50s, and they burned up the original engine, completely burned it up and threw it out. And they put a short block Pontiac engine in the car because, frankly, it's more powerful than this engine.
Right.
And for racing, that's what they did with a lot of these cars. Then the gentleman who was a high school math teacher in Sweden that bought the car sourced a Bristol engine from the factory that was, time correct engine, and that's what we put in here and rebuilt. So.
Thank you, Alberto. I hope to see you at the Morgan Adams this year.
I hope to be there.
Okay,
it's a
very
great
good.
cause, and I'm looking forward to it.